I just want to start off by saying, fuck this movie.
I know. What's up, guys? This is Courtney, one half of Deconstruction here.
Joined by something that's happening a lot now. theBRUCE, the other half of the Brothers of Deconstruction.
And today is very, very interesting. We are bringing a dual review for Wonder Woman 1984. And this was originally Bruce's idea that I kind of didn't say no to. Because I was watching the movie and I'm kind of not completely checked out of doing stuff for the channel, but when it comes to watching a movie, I have to take into account, downloading trailers or trying to find a copy of the movie to download to use as reference points and editing and all that stuff. So I didn't really have the energy to do it. So Bruce said, hey, do you want to jump on and do, just the both of us reviewing it? So I said, that might work, because I assume that he's going to take up the editing responsibility on this video. So that's one of the only reasons why I agree. But I was watching the movie yesterday and I kept live tweeting it. And all of the things that you may or may not have seen about the movie being bad, in our opinion, because again, this is subjective, it's true. So I started live tweeting the movie basically, and it's bad. This movie is not good, and so many people jumping in and kind of replying to my tweets, laughing along with me. It got to a certain point, and we'll jump into it. It got to a certain point where I cut the movie off, and one of my boys said, "Nah, you got to finish it. You got to see how worse it gets." And it wasn't worth it. It was not. It was not worth it at all. Okay. So yeah, this is our joint review of Wonder Woman 1984.
And then I would like to also preface this with, the only reason that I watched this movie is because Courtney was like, I want to do a review, but I don't want to find a copy. And I was like, you want me to watch it and we can do a dual review? Because I've never seen the first Wonder Woman, and I still have no intentions on seeing it. But I do love me a shitty movie. And the way Courtney was tweeting about it, I was like, this sounds like my kind of shitty. It wasn't.
It wasn't at all.
It just wasn't. I own 2 copies of Batman and Robin, all right, on VHS. And there's nothing redeeming about this movie.
Yeah, so this isn't scripted. I didn't really write any notes down. I can always just kind of go reference back to my tweets, which I have pulled up, and then I just lost them. Okay, there we go. So let's just go ahead and kind of jump into it. I want to now from the beginning. I want to preface this from the beginning. I had no intention of watching this movie. I had no intention of watching this movie. The trailers did not sell me. It was really, again, the whole web swinging across lightning bolts thing. That put me off, and then a lot of the things in the movie just didn't seem. They seemed a little off compared to the first movie. Now, Bruce doesn't have reference of the first movie because he has not watched it. But after I saw everybody start talking about how bad it was, I was like, okay, I gotta see how bad this is. This can't be that bad, right? And it is that bad. Now, I did see a bit of a extreme statement made if Catwoman, Halle Berry's Catwoman and Green Lantern had a baby, and that baby went ahead and had a baby with the final season of Game of Thrones, it would be Wonder Woman 1984.
Jesus.
I think that's a little extreme, but I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at the statement being made. This movie, first and foremost, this movie is boring. This movie is really, really boring. It opens up with a very nonsensical obstacle course in Themyscira that for some odd reason, what has to be a 10-year-old Diana is allowed to participate in.
And she's wrecking like full-grown adults.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. But it starts out with a nonsensical obstacle course that she's very close to winning, but they say that she cheated. Now, my thing is that my problem, I get the message that they're trying, and the overall message of the movie. It uses Maxwell Lord as the villain. So, if you're familiar with him, anytime that he gets brought up, there's going to be a message about greed and desires and things like that. I get the message that they were trying to make. And there is potential for a movie with this type of character, with these type of characters and that type of power or motivation or what have you. Basically, kind of, it's the typical trying to show how evil people can really be if you give them the opportunity to give them whatever they want. But with that being said, they stopped her. Robin Wright's character, I forget her name. She stops Diana from like throwing this javelin through this ring because Diana cheated. Because they had to shoot little containers that blow up and this mist, this colored smoke rises in the air, and then they have basically a ribbon tally that gets longer and longer.
Super convoluted.
Diana misses one because now my issue during this was that she kept looking back while riding on the horse. And my thing was like, stop doing that because you're going to fall off the fucking horse. And sure enough, while she's looking back to see people gaining on her, she doesn't see some trees. She gets knocked off of her horse. The horse doesn't stop. It keeps going. So she's like, okay, what the fuck do I do? Everybody's like passing me. Now, had she stayed on the horse, she would have hit her little crystal thing, and then she would have still been ahead. So she saw the other riders like riding past. The horse is still going down the fucking path. So she takes a shortcut, misses the fucking smoke signal, and gets back on the horse and finishes it. So my thing was like, is that really cheating just because she didn't hit the smoke crystal? That was my issue with the whole, you cheated, you didn't deserve to win, your time will come, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but she fell off the fucking horse, and she had to get back on it. Like, in that instance, is she supposed to ride back and hit the fucking smoke thing? If that's the case, we need rules to this, okay?
And here's my issue with this as the opening. So, most openings to movies, something like that, if it's a flashback, it will draw back to in the movie later. Where, so she wasn't ready, her time will come, blah, blah, blah. They never call back to it.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of this being your opening if it plays no part in the larger story that's going to... Like this, I was watching this, and I'm like, I text you, I was like, I'm 10 minutes in, and I'm already done. Like, this opening, I feel like, wasted my time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, and the reason why I laughed is because literally my first tweet about the movie was, I'm 10 minutes into this movie and this is a bad decision. Because after this, and the funny thing is, I saw, I almost sent the screenshot or at least the article to you and John, because every now and then when I check my notifications on my phone, I get Google notifications, and it's always like an article or something that's on like the Google's main page. And it was something like Patty Jenkins vetoed the studio wanting to cut out this opening scene. And I was like, she should have let them. She should have let them, because it served no purpose. If you want a movie to be about people being greedy and wanting more and things like that, you can make a better parallel than Diana taking a shortcut because she wants to win really badly and she thinks she deserves to win. I get the parallel that you're trying to make, but it's not. It's a very big reach, especially for one that never gets touched back on. So that opens the movie, and then literally after that, nothing happens in the movie for the next 60 minutes. This movie is 2.5 hours.
Okay, let me jump in, because the immediate scene after that, is like they're trying to put in as much 80s imagery as they possibly can without, I don't know, tapping into, like, cause Courtney's born in 1990. I was born in 83. So I remember some of the stuff. Not in 84, because, you know, boy was one. But some
Right.
of this imagery I grew up with.
Right.
And then it's just like all these bright fucking colors. Just like, hey, your problem with DC movies were color. Look at all these vibrant 80s colors that we have. And I'm like, they got dudes speeding and she's like rescuing people secretly.
Mm-hmm.
And then this mall scene.
Yeah, the mall scene was a little weird. The mall scene was a little weird.
Like, they're robbing some black market jewelry or artifacts and shit. And then they throw the bags. Okay, like, there was no type of secrecy to this as they walk out. They just throw two dudes the bags, and one dude drops his gun, and that sets off a thing. And a guy can't go back to jail, so he kidnapped a child, and then Wonder Woman. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. No, that was, and the funniest thing was that the characters in the film were asking the same question. They were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
And the acting
like,
is
go back, and I'm like, so my thing is, you're saying that you can't go back to jail. So you pick up a kid and you hold them over 30-foot railing.
How does this keep you from going back to jail?
Exactly. How does this isn't a deterrent. Like, if the cops come, if they get any closer, you drop the kid, okay? It's a dead kid, unfortunately, but you're still available to arrest. I don't understand. And even the action was different in this film. Now, again, Bruce doesn't have any reference for
outside of clips that I've seen.
Outside of clips from the first movie. Well, I don't think the action was A1. It was amazing in the first film. The action was pretty good. They did some creative stuff. But even from the trailers, when we see the whole knee slide, kicking people, tripping people up thing, I was like, oh, they're really leaning into that again. Because that's one thing that she did in this one particular scene in the first movie. But that overall, there are a lot of issues with the film outside of, like, plot, script, story,
acting,
and effects. Just a lot of the, like, the editing and the pacing is really bad. And the action isn't there. One, there's not enough of it because, again, the reason why I say this movie is boring, you have that opening obstacle course. You have the scene where she saves a woman from getting hit by a car, and then these guys rob this jewelry store that's a front for black market artifact selling, and then nothing happens until an hour and 5 minutes into the film. And the only reason why I can go back and recall that is because I looked at the time.
Likewise.
When I was watching the movie. I was like, how far am I into this fucking movie and ain't nothing happened yet?
Like, I legit texted Courtney. I'm like, dude, I'm an hour and 6 minutes in this movie. Like, so, the first, like, with the obstacle course and the fucking mall thing, I feel like everything was, like, super rushed in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the mall scene, just slows the fuck down. And I'm like, if you didn't slow this movie down right now, we could be halfway done with it. It did not need to be 2.5 fucking hours. Because legit nothing happens in a good hour after it hits the hour mark. Like, it's like, okay, hour. Oh, hey, I'm going to do something. We have the plot. Conversation. Research. And I'm like, why is this movie so fucking slow?
Yeah. And the movie is just bad.
Oh,
like, again, I don't. I'm not trying to. I know, at least in my reviews, I get hung up on explaining the plot of the film.
Same.
And then that just becomes a very long video. But here, it's key because I'm trying to describe how nothing happens in the film. So again, you get that opening sequence Then it's a bunch of character introductions, a whole bunch of talking, and then literally about an hour and 10 minutes in, then some stuff starts happening and the plot starts picking up a bit, but it's still not super like the pace isn't picked up that much. But I think this goes back to the editing, because like you said, things seemed really rushed even when they slowed down, because right before it starts picking up, I think the midway point is right when I think the midway point, around an hour and some change in, is when Diana and Steve go to somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And they're following Maxwell Lord.
Because that's like the next big action sequence.
Yeah, so that's like the next big action sequence of the film, where they kind of follow him out there, and then we get like a car chase and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, this is an hour. We still have an hour. We still have a movie's length worth of time.
Okay, but before we go forward, I gotta point out some shit from that Middle Eastern action scene. All right, the running green screen effect is comical. Like,
yeah. Not even just the running green screen effect. Just her super speed running does not look. It breaks the laws of physics, because she's not even. And I noticed this in somebody else's video that I watched, because I get into the habit of pulling up, like, creating a bunch of tabs of YouTube videos, and one of them was a Wonder Woman 84 review, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna really let anybody else's review saying it's like, oh, it's bad, it's good, whatever like that, judge my opinion of the film. So let me go ahead and watch it. And I watched it afterwards, and he mentioned how her running doesn't even look realistic because she's not touching the ground.
Yeah.
Later on in the movie, when she fucking lassos a cloud to take off, she's running down the street, and it looks like they're holding her on wires and like pulling her along, and her feet aren't touching the ground, and she's kind of running in place. And it's really noticeable. And like you said, the green screen effect where it shows her and she's running, it looks really noticeable. Now, one of the comments that I've seen about this film is that there's a lot of things that look like, oh, they're trying to make this look like it was done in the 80s, or they're doing, it has a particular look with some of the shots and everything like that. But the follow-up comment is, I can't tell if this was done purposefully or not. And that's the thing. If that was like a homage to like the 90s Flash or like that type of particular style, I could get it. But the thing is, I don't even want to give them that much credit, because I don't know if that was intentional.
Yeah. And then when she notices she's losing her power and she's like swinging to go save those children, and she rolls, the most obvious fucking dummies I've ever seen. Yeah. I'm like, the stiffness, like, why would you put this, like, at least do this from a distance. Don't have it, like, at least show the cars approaching as she's like swinging in to save the kids, so you get that full. So I don't see that these are fucking mannequins.
Yeah. That was especially when she hit the ground and rolled, I was like, those are obvious mannequins right there. Like, holy shit.
Fucking Starships, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now started playing in my head. If you don't get that reference, that was the main song from the 1980s movie Mannequin.
Oh my God, this movie is so bad.
Jesus Christ.
This movie is, and it's just a bunch of things compounded about the film. So even if you want to move down the plot and continue talking about the bad stuff that you see, even when it comes to Maxwell Lord, he's like, my big thing, and you know what, I'm gonna just kind of jump all around the place. My big thing with Maxwell Lord is that out of all the shit that he did in the movie, he has a good ending. And I don't understand. I was expecting him to get shot when he was running towards his son. Because I was like, they can't just let him go, right? Like, there has to be like that's him, and he gets shot, and he doesn't get that happy ending when he embraces his son. Maxwell Lord gets away scot-free, and he literally came this close to destroying the entire world.
Like, when I saw, like, it build into the climax, I text Courtney, I go, I think I know what's coming, and I sent him the screen grab from the comic when Wonder Woman snapped Maxwell Lord's neck, and he was like, no. And I was like, okay, I got scared, because that's like the crowning Wonder Woman, like, comic book, like, thing that I can point back to, because I keep like, I don't get why Wonder Woman is so popular. Like, no one can tell me why she's so popular. Like, how she's this big comic book icon, and I can get no one to tell me a good Wonder Woman story arc. Like, if it's a huge comic book icon, someone could be like, oh, well, you should read this story. Like, you know. So, watching it, I was like,
honestly, I would have taken her breaking his neck over what we got.
Yeah. And then, okay, my problem with Maxwell Lord is, my problem with the villains of this movie overall is, they're not really villains. Like, they're not, the main antagonists in this movie aren't really pushing her to be better. It's just like, oh, he has this thingy, I gotta find it. All right, what, and the obstacles that are being created aren't really that big of an obstacle.
Like the issue again, he gets away scot-free. And the issue with Maxwell Lord is that they give him, again, they make him sympathetic. I get why he has the greed, and I get why he's fueled by greed. He grew up in a broken home. He was poor, and he wants nothing but to, like, be looked up to by others and be looked up to by his son. That, I get that. That type of motivation fuels people to do worse things in real life, right? Wanting to provide for your family, or being poor and always wanting a better life makes people do some terrible things just so they can get into a better position. So I completely get that. However, when it comes to the actual movie, at times he turns into, they try to give him a duality that doesn't quite work because of the writing.
Yeah.
He now, Pedro Pascal, as good of an actor as he's known to be, he tries to flip the switch from being cold and, like, kind of calculated or sneaky or slimy. Because early on when he was first introduced, we see him as, like, these infomercials about buying into his oil company or whatever like that. And when we first see him meet up with Barbara, who Kristen Wiig plays, Cheetah, he seems he seems like a slimy car salesman. And I was like, I don't trust this dude already, even if I didn't know anything about him. He just looks untrustworthy. But then there are other times where he looks really, really conflicted, and he has, like, manic moments of outbursts because he's angry at something. Like when his son sees the interaction of a guy that basically comes into his offices that aren't even done yet. That just shows you how the dream that he's trying to sell, that he's living on, the string is being held together by I don't know what. But his son sees that interaction, and the guy calls him a loser when he goes out. He has this really manic outburst because his son saw it. And he's like, I'm not a loser. That guy's a loser. You do not believe any word that he says. And I'm like, okay, I can get with that. But then at times it goes a little bit too far. But when they try to flip it, it's, okay, you already crossed over into the manic area. You can't be cold now. Or you can't be scared that you're about to get into a fucking fight now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So and then even going with Cheetah, there was no need for her to be in the film.
No.
Because she comes from the trope of the quirky, weird person. And before I even continue with that statement, the first time she sees Diana, she asks her out. She just meets her at work, and she's like, "Would you like to go get lunch?" And I'm like, "Whoa, miss, can you calm down? This is a little. Is this what it's like for women that get like asked out immediately by guys? Because no, this made me extremely uncomfortable." And I was like, "Whoa, Barbara, you gotta chill out. You just met this woman."
It was
I don't understand.
It was literally, you're like the first person that was ever nice to me. I must become obsessed with you.
Yes, it's that trope.
A trope that's like, for some reason, specific to comic book movies.
Yeah, because somebody retweeted a picture of like all the characters that had like this weird hairstyle, glasses, looked funny, and it was Michelle Pfeiffer, Kristen Wiig, Jamie Foxx, Guy Pearce, and I think one or two other characters. And I was like, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer and Guy Pearce's characters were the only ones where it wasn't annoyingly heavy-handed as hell.
Like, you could put Halle Berry and Catwoman in there because she had that transformation.
Yeah, but those are the only two characters where it wasn't like overwhelmingly annoying, because at least for 89 Batman, Selena was an assistant secretary. There's a joke that they made in that film, but you think about the time, women were treated that way. Selena wasn't really confident in herself. Like, you get that kind of fueled that persona.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like she was weird or quirky. She kind of was, but the reason why she looked that way is because she was always at fucking work. So her hair was a fucking mess, shit like that.
And then the same thing with Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy.
Uma Thurman was the other picture that they had.
Selena and Pamela were both killed, and then their transformation happened.
Yeah.
Like, their employers basically killed them, and then they had that transformation. Everybody else who was in that picture just transformed that way themselves.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with Halle Berry. They were effectively killed. Transformation happened. So, but I don't think they were more infatuated with anybody to, you know.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing.
But this,
it's been a while since I watched Batman and Robin, so I'm not entirely sure on Uma Thurman's Pam Isley. But you know, Michelle Pfeiffer, she wasn't obsessed with any one person. She just wanted to be a better her. She wanted to have more confidence and everything like that. And I guess you can say that Kristen Wiig, that was Barbara's motivation as well. But
her motivation was because she met Diana. She didn't want to be a better her. She literally wanted to be Diana, which was her wish.
Yeah. Yeah. So she wanted to be Diana, and I was like, okay, she's falling for Maxwell's. Is like, he seduces her to get the fucking stone. It's just a bunch of nonsensical shit.
And then one thing I want to point out, what you were saying about Maxwell, is that scene when the dude's like, just like, you're a loser and whatnot, and then you see him turning. That should have been a bigger point in character development.
Yeah.
For him, because once he gets the stone, he's like, I wish I were you so I can go around granting wishes.
Mm-hmm.
That's his big evil plan, because he wanted power. Okay, you could have just wished for the power. He's like, I want to be the stone. Or he's like, hey, like, or you could have done what his like actual power is, the telepathic manipulation. It would have accomplished the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like making him wish to be the stone, and then because it's the classic. Steve even mentions this. It's the classic monkey's paw. You make a wish, but it takes something from you. Mm-hmm. So that's what he was doing. They turned him into a monkey's paw. He asked to become the stone so he can get these powers. And what he would do is, the way that he would give out wishes, and then he would take people's luxuries and their power. So when he went overseas to the Middle East, he asked the guy, "What do you wish for?" And the guy was like, for all of my land to be returned. He's like, "Okay, I grant your wish has been granted, but I'm taking all of your oil." Then when the guy was like, "I sold my oil, fool," and then he was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna take this whole army of yours then, and you're not gonna have nothing for the coup that's about to happen for you right now. So have a good day."
Also,
and it was like, why not just, again, like you said, why not just wish for the power?
Yeah. Like, so I recently reread first volume of Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
And in that dream, Morpheus, when he's going to grab like all of his artifacts that were stolen from him, one of them was the Dream Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Destiny manipulated the Dream Stone so he can have control over it. And when I'm watching this, I'm like, what? This could have been Dr. Destiny. Like, because I'm like the Dreamstone and manipulating everything. I'm like, well, this could have been Dr. Destiny. Like, because that's one of the things that he does, like, has control. And I'm like, I feel like whoever wrote this was reading Sandman and was like, oh, I like this. I'm going to use it. Like,
look, this it's just, and then going, speaking of Barbara, and going back to the graphics or the effects, Cheetah looks terrible. Cheetah, and not even just Cheetah. There are some wonky ass animations in the film. Even in the beginning, when we see the fucking women lassoing over the obstacle course, it looks really, really wonky. There's nothing, and then I'm avoiding the elephant of the room.
Let's do it.
Diana rapes a man in this movie.
Yes.
And it was this was the worst possible way they could have brought Steve back. Had it just been, now when I saw Steve in set photos and
a members only jacket.
Not even that. When I just saw Steve in set photos and they were doing promotional pictures from the film, and you saw the promo pics of Steve and things like that, I was like, so how is he back? How are they bringing him back? And then it was like, oh well, Maxwell Lord is in the movie, and I was like, so she's gonna wish for him to be back, okay? Because that was my understanding of Max. This was before we knew anything about the Dreamstone or anything like that. My very loose understanding of Maxwell Lord is that he can grant people's wishes. Now I'm probably wrong on that, but for whatever reason, I knew that because of Maxwell Lord being in this film, I was like, oh, she's gonna wish for him to be back, and that's how they bring him back. That was such a waste of a death in the first movie.
Okay, here's my issue with that. First Wonder Woman took place in World War I, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like 1917 or some shit like that.
Yeah. It's literally been 70 years.
Yeah. So, in 70 years, she has not gotten over his death.
Nope.
To the point where she gets in contact with, like, I wish Steve was back. And it doesn't just bring him back, it puts him in someone else's body.
Yeah. Doesn't make any fucking sense.
And then it was like, if once the monkey's paw, something's taken away. Now, what's being taken away from her is her power. And then he was like, you gotta let me go. And she refuses. 70 fucking years have passed. And she, like, her emotional development is just trash. Like, okay, this one dude, once again, never seen the movie. I had basically a fling with because he crashed and blah, 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 took me to man's world. I love him. 70 years, and she's like, I'm stuck on this one guy. I'm not going to move forward. I'm stuck on this one guy. I'm going to be in hiding, but I'm stuck on this one guy, to the point where 70 years later, her one wish is, I wish this guy was back. And she refuses to give up on it. It's like, I deserve this. Like, you don't. Like, you're literally...
You know what? I want you to watch the first film to get more context, because even then, I can understand there was a very long stretch of time over the course of the movie because they were together for a while, right? And when it came down to him dying, I got it. It was like, look, it's a sacrifice that he's making because he's know that this is basically the only way that they're going to stop this particular conflict on the ground. But even then, when it comes to her one wish, you would think after seeing the first movie and her not wanting men to be better, wanting man to be better. That was the one thing in the first movie, which again, I watched the first movie because there's even a certain point where she kills Ludendorff and she thinks that that's Ares and they're still fighting, and she was like, "What? Why aren't they? I killed Ares. Why are they still fighting?" And Chris was like, "Diana, some people are just bad. There's nothing that you can do about that. So what we have to do is we have to stop what's happening now. You can't just wish and hope for people to be better." Now that's a paraphrase, and he doesn't literally say that, but that's the conversation that they have. Basically telling her, look, you have to, sometimes it's not the whispers of the god of war making people fight. That's how people are, that's how humanity is. Sometimes there's nothing else that you can do but fight and hope for a better outcome. You mean in 70 fucking years she has the one opportunity?
So she lives through World War II, the fucking Korean War, the Vietnam War. And she's in the middle of the Cold War, the fucking Cuban Missile Crisis. And she's still like, you know what my wish is? I wish Steve Trevor was back. It's a lot of fucking wars.
Especially for her to be so hung up on that in the first movie.
Live through the Kennedy like both Kennedy assassinations. The fucking Watergate. Like, you're living through a lot of terrible fucking American history. But just from the American side, not the global side. Like, this is not me mentioning any of the global shit that's going on. This is, right. She's in America and she's living through this. But her one wish, I wish Steve Trevor was back.
But I get the conflict that brings up because, again, it ties back to the overall theme of greed and desire, right?
And the only reason I think this movie's set in the 80s, because it's the decade of assess, and they can do the greed thing. But they do it so wrong.
Again, this movie just is bad, man. There's so many things I can jump around back and forth between that don't make sense.
Look, okay, like, because this is gonna be an hour long if we keep going. So I just want to point out my issue with the climax of this movie. So she's losing her power. So she gives up, and she's doing her terrible run, and then she starts web swinging on clouds and lightning and shit, and then she learns how to fly. I thought she already knew how to fly, but
Go on.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So she, like, they're building up the Alex Ross armor to be like this big fucking MacGuffin. She puts it on, and then the wings just get decimated in her fight with Cheetah. Just decimated. Right? So they have their big fight, and then she goes to have her big confrontation with Maxwell Lord. She put on this fucking god armor, and she can't even walk to the guy. So, what's the big fight scene? She gives him a stern talking to.
And the thing, she's not even talking to...
Like,
bruh. But first of all, let's talk about her powers, right?
Right.
So she gets some random ass powers out of nowhere. She gets the ability to turn things invisible, so they create the invisible jet in the movie. I would have rather it been an actual invisible jet than the shit that they do. And then speaking of that scene, so Steve is piloting the jet. They see fireworks going off. You know, it's one of those amazing ooh ah scenes and everything like that. But then they fly through the fireworks, and I'm like, that's stupid. These fireworks are like blowing up. They don't know where they're coming from.
Oh, and then with Steve flying a new jet, you flew a World War I plane. The technology is just like, yeah, I can fly anything. Oh, and then the fucking just hand wave to make this. I think that's your power. You can fly anything. I'm like, man, fuck you.
Oh my god! But the fucking so she gets the ability to turn shit invisible,
But the
and then
jump, remember, because she was like, I've done this once to a coffee mug, and I
and I
lost it.
lost it.
And I was like, all right, first time. Like, it wasn't, okay, that didn't work. It didn't build up. It was literally first go, and it works.
Yeah, yeah. This was bad. And even going to her ability to fly. Now, my thing is that they've never shown consistency with her ability to fly. Because I think either in the first Wonder Woman movie or the Justice League movie, there was a moment where she was kind of like floating, but it's kind of like the Ang Lee's Hulk thing. Like, he can jump really, really far, but when you try to execute that in movies, it looks like he's flying. I don't know if it was just her jumping and kind of floating over somewhere, or if she was actually flying. That doesn't matter, because technically, if it was the Justice League, technically that took place way after this film.
Yeah.
However, she should have been able to fly in the first film. You introduced this by Steve telling that, her talking to Steve like, that's the one thing I don't get flying, and he explains it as just wind, and you got to catch the drift and all this stuff. So she launches herself into the air and is floating and falling. Really, she's falling, and then she remembers his words, and then she just kind of like stabilizes herself and starts flying. And then this corny ass poses. It looks so awkward. She went from. And I'm like, bro, you have got to be kidding me. Oh my God. Holy shit, this is bad.
Oh.
But like, bruh, you have super speed and you can fly. Most of the things in this film that happened did not need to happen. You do not need to use a lasso for as much of the shit that she used, because you have you are bulletproof, and we see that, which is why I don't understand in the first film, one of the Amazonians gets shot in the stomach and dies, and I think it's either Robin Wright's character or somebody close to her, but I'm like, isn't she bulletproof? We see her get shot in this film and get like a little scratch, and she's losing her powers at that. But all you can see is like her bleeding from it. But she's still bulletproof. Bruh, you shouldn't be scared. I don't understand. I get the whole blocking with the gauntlets is cool as hell, but you have super speed and you can fly. You don't need to web swing with a lasso. You don't. Just get up and fly. Just get up and just jump and fly. Please. Just jump and fly. And that was my main issue with the trailer, showing her web swinging across lightning bolts to get somewhere. Because it's like, look, I get the parallel. Somebody talked about the parallel. Technically, in this version, they're using the New 52 version where she's the daughter of Zeus and Apollita or whatever like that. So she would have some of his powers. So that's reference to lightning bolts. And I'm like, but at the same time, this bitch can fly. Why are you web swinging at all? Like when Steve activates a missile during that car chase in the Middle East, he throws it up, it activates, and she lassos onto it to get stuck from in between the. You can fly. Just jump from between the trucks.
Oh, speaking of that,
you're losing your powers, but you still have enough to fucking leg press a car from crushing you. You can fucking at least fly a bit. And then, which is one of the most random editing choices ever, she calls Barbara, tells her, what information did you find out about the stone? Oh, it's been all over the place. Leads have been going nowhere, but I'm following up on one at this record store or something like that. Okay, I'll see you in the morning. I'm thinking they gonna get it in a jet or something like that and fly back there, because I don't know what fucking time it is. Yeah. I don't know the fucking time difference. literally Barbara hangs up. Does time pass?
I don't know.
I don't even know if time passes, but we get a shot of a field and you see a line, like impressions being drawn in the field, and then you get a shot, and it's, I guess, inferring that she ran all the way to fucking New York or wherever the fucking movie is based. No, Washington D.C. because she works at the Smithsonian. Mm. But Steve is with you, so what? Did you hold his head so his neck wouldn't break? I don't. How did y'all get there that fast? Nothing in this movie makes sense. And the funniest shit about this is that you would think that the movie would have some type of consistency with the first film. Because, again, you would think most of the people that created the first film would come back to make the second film. And you would be wrong. Because Patty Jenkins directed the first film, but she did not write it. Zack Snyder and somebody else wrote the first film. Patty Jenkins wrote this film.
All right,
you can tell.
I'm about to get a little bit sexist here. You can tell that a woman wrote this movie when the big climax is, I'm going to talk to you, and all of the issues in the world are going to go away because of this talking to. Like, that speech, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
First of all, that speech, look. First of all, the goodbye to Trevor was terrible. Horrible acting. I did not buy it, right? I love Gal for trying, right? I love Gal for trying. She didn't pull it off. Then following the Maxwell Lord's like tunnel power, because he's in like the fucking war room bunker, and he's connecting to everybody, sucking like power from everyone, because people are constantly making wishes. She can't, like you said, she can't walk to him because his power now is the power of wind, and it's strong enough to stop her from walking towards him.
He's got that planetarium
on to him like she's been doing everybody else in the fucking film, and I'm like, bruh, what? I don't understand. And then somehow, as she gets blown into a corner, somehow the lasso creeps over and attaches itself to his ankle, and she doesn't talk to him. She talks to the world, telling them to renounce their wishes. But I'm like,
see, and she's appealing to the good inside of humanity. Some of those people will not renounce their wishes. Like, just some was like, well, fuck no. Like, if the big overall plot is greed, you're not focusing on the people who have nothing but their own self-interest.
Right.
Like, Maxwell has a change of character because he sees his son just running around. It's like, the kid he's kind of been shitty to this entire movie is what gets him to renounce his wish.
Yeah.
What happens to the fucking Dreamstone once he renounces his wish? Because they don't bring that shit up. He's not the Dreamstone anymore, so therefore it should physically exist. What happened to it? Like, there's...
I don't have the answer, because this movie is bad. This movie is bad. That's the summary of this fucking movie.
Yeah.
This movie is bad.
I don't know if you can tell from our dialogue with each other, but there is not a single redeeming thing about this movie. Acting's bad. Plot is atrocious. Pacing is off the fucking wall.
This movie is a good 45 minutes too long.
Yeah.
This movie is 2 hours and 31 minutes. This movie could have been cut down to an hour, and I would even give you 2 hours. Because at the end of the day, it's a superhero movie. A lot of superhero movies are going to come in around that 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
I would give you, now that's a hard cap. I would give you a hard cap of 2 hours. This movie should not have been 2.5 hours because nothing happened for a good 30 minutes of the film. This is one of those moments where I could get if it was 2 hours and it seemed rushed and unfocused like Justice League was. Justice League had a 2-hour, but see, the issue with that is that there was more story that was originally in the script for Justice League, and they said, no, you gotta, this cut needs to be 2 hours. The issue here is that, no, you need to give them, hey, there should have been a mandate on like script length. Like, hey, this movie needs to be, after somebody read this script and said, okay, that's fine. This, and we're going by the standard that a minute of screen time is a page in the script. This 230-page script, somebody read this and greenlit this and said, this is fine. There doesn't need to be anything cut from it. No, somebody should have said, nah, you need to cut back. You need to do another draft, refocus some things. You need to cut at least 30 minutes out of this script. I think that would have given the film a much tighter focus. And with less time, you have to mean what you say. You have to do everything with intent. Because again, a lot of the things in this film, a lot of the issues with this film, at least plot-wise, is that a lot of stuff doesn't happen early on because they do too much bouncing around trying to explain stuff. So it's like, hey, we get this open. All right, we need to find out what the MacGuffin of the film is. The MacGuffin is what we're going to call the Dreamstone. It's actually based on a real crystal in the Quartz family, but I forget the name of it. But okay, this is the item that was involved in the robbery at the start of the film. Okay. All right, we meet Barbara. She works at the Smithsonian. Don't nobody know her. I get it. She's a nobody. She meets Diana. Immediately is like, oh my God, I want to be like her. And then we meet Maxwell Lord. We see some backstory about him. This needs to be focused a whole lot differently. Some things need to be shaved down. Some things need to be extended a little bit. But even then, there are a lot of technical things that are bad with the film as well. As far as graphics, just the way that it's shot, it doesn't, like, it's bright. I love the bright palette because it pops everything. You can see everything. But another thing is that last fight with Cheetah, you could not fucking see. And I think I understand why, because the CG on her looked fucking terrible. Anytime you see a CG fight, that's shrouded in darkness, that's because they're trying to hide bad CG. It's a lot of issues that are wrong with this film, and they've already greenlit the third movie, and apparently Patty is coming back to direct and write. I would be fine with Patty. Look, I'm not trying to shit on Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins is a well-known and well-acclaimed director for good reason. Like, she did fucking Point Break. Wasn't she the one that did Point Break, or was that somebody else?
Like the original Point Break?
Yes. Patty, I'm pretty sure Patty Jenkins. There was a female director behind the original Point Break, and I'm pretty sure it was Patty Jenkins.
Well, let us see. But yeah, so.
But I'm fine with Patty Jenkins directing the film. We need to get somebody else in to write.
Yes. Catherine Bigelow.
Oh, okay. All right. Catherine Bigelow did Point Break. All right. What else did Patty Jenkins? Patty Jenkins did something else. Because Catherine Bigelow did Point Break and Zero Dark 30. But Patty Jenkins has like a couple of movies under her belt. And that was the whole thing when she was brought on for Wonder Woman.
Just Drive, Velocity Rules, Monster. Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, okay. So I guess she's most known for Monster, at least for me.
Yeah.
But I don't have an issue with Patty directing. We need to get somebody else in to write this movie.
Yeah.
Because there are issues with like we've said before, there are a bunch of script issues, plot. It seemed really unfocused. There wasn't any action. And when there was, it just wasn't imaginative. Like, there's only she's not Spider-Man. I'm not trying to see her lasso everybody.
God damn it.
I'm not trying to see her lasso everybody. With the power set that she has, you can find some ways. You can figure out some ways to make action scenes with Wonder Woman in them creative. This is a woman that can take a headbutt from fucking Superman and not be affected by it at all. But you can't walk towards a guy because wind is stopping you.
I think that's a good place to end this. Because, yeah, but those are our opinions on Wonder Woman 84, the train wreck that is Wonder Woman 84. As always, I am theBRUCE, the other half of the Brothers of Deconstruction.
And I'm Courtney, the other half of the Brothers of Deconstruction.
Thanks for watching.
Peace out. God, this is